Hi guys, my name is Suvam, and for my 20 time project, I decided to create a device. So it is called Woke, and it is an innovative wristwatch to combat student daytime sleepiness. So, cat out of the bag, it's very evident that there's a lack of sleep at this school. But why is this bad? So before I start going in, how many of you have in the past week or so have gotten more than 6 hours of sleep? Okay. How many of you guys have ever had an incident where you fell asleep in one of your classes? So, yeah. You go around any class, you're going to find the same responses. People saying, oh, I got plenty of sleep, but, they also say, wait, I also fall asleep in class as well. So, lack of sleep, it affects the body for a number of reasons. So, we covered this, yes, in previous units, but just as a quick recap. So it disrupts the natural cycle of REM and non-REM sleep, generally preventing people from experiencing REM sleep and being stuck in a constant cycle between N1 and N2 stages of sleep. And N3 sleep, when we undergo it and later into full-blown REM sleep, our brains begin to work on processing all the information that we have got that day and proceeds to clear the brain of all of fluids and excess brain matter. And sleeping disorders prevent this from happening, and as such, a buildup of these fluids can occur, affecting the brain in really negative ways. Affecting how you process information, how how you respond to people. It's pretty nasty. So, and excluding the brain, heart rate and the cardiovascular system is also affected, as it has really no time to kind of slow down and make any repairs needed to the organ structures, and as such, heart rate can also start to become irregular. So, as part of the project, I went and did a poll of students in one of my classes, not this one, obviously, and what I found was that 75.9% of the high school students that I interviewed were at, sorry. So 75.9%, that's actually from a statistic that I found. It shows that 75.9% of high school students are at risk of developing sleep disorders, and in the survey that I did, 67.4% of all respondents said that they had fallen asleep in class on a weekly basis. So, in addition, 60% indicated that their sleeping cycle had a negative effect on their academic performances. They couldn't study properly. They couldn't remember things. The whole problem. So this pressing problem requires an immediate and effective response. So this is where Woke comes in. So Woke is effectively a sort of wristwatch-like device that is meant to that's meant to vibrate whenever students fall asleep. Now, this is done through, in its design, it basically has it has a motion sensor inside of it. And when you fall asleep, you generally don't move around. You're just, completely still. So you can, set the Woke to, sorry. You can send the Woke to, any setting, vibrate if I don't move for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever. And it will, and because it's a wristwatch, it's not kind of a phone or an alarm that it's very loud. It vibrates on your arm, so it doesn't disrupt the rest of your class. So yeah. And again, people might say, hey, this kind of looks similar to an Apple Watch or a Fitbit. My whole point here is not to redesign the wheel. I mean, you don't see BMW and Tesla going to suing each other over using a wheel. The whole point is that it's meant to help students combat this sleepiness. So, so obviously some hurdles that we had was, some hurdles that I had was that, I was a one-man person. This is one person trying to create a product, and, I had to go find all these, people that could manufacture it, the parts needed to create this product, and also creating a series of business plans and presentations for people that are either interested or even investors to look at. So, I hope this device, and so honestly, I do hope this device becomes successful as I, go into the summer and plan on, showing this to other people. And if it's not successful, I hope this can inspire others to go out and try to solve the problem that I am trying to solve. So, I hope all of you can take from this device a very viable option to combat student daytime sleepiness. And as such, stay woke. So, any questions? Kedar.
So, Mr. Lee, can I ask 2 questions? Or? Sure. Okay. So my first question would be, what stops people like Apple or like any of the smartwatch developers, Fitbit, anything like that, to just implement this in a new version of their device?
Well, one thing is patents for it, and also Fitbit and Apple Watch. Like Fitbit, it's designed for to track your heart rate and all that. Apple Watch, it's kind of a jack of all trades. It's designed to tell time, to have mini apps, and well, Woke is solely focused on trying to keep students awake. So that kind of negates any issue of like, hey, you're copying our design or something like that.
Okay. And the second question was just, I heard you talking about like manufacturers and like the cost for all this. From your research, what did you pinpoint the approximate cost to be of such a device?
So the approximate cost for each individual device would be somewhere from $100 to $200. It depends on what products I use, or depend like what type of resources I use. Depend like which manufacturer I contact to produce each specific part of it. And in terms of selling price, I don't want to Apple stuff is generally tend to be like Fitbit. They're all really expensive. So my main selling point is probably around $30 to $50. I don't want to bankrupt high school students because Saratoga, we're very rich. Let's be honest, we can afford a lot of stuff, but in most other high schools, most students can't afford the luxuries that we got. Keon?
I think if like just like a piece of advice, I think rather than making like its own device, I think this would be more effective because a lot of people have like Fitbit and Apple Watches, you might want to make this like an app.
So that was my original plan to go into app development, but the problem was that with an app development, you kind of have to use the parts given to you by the Apple Watch. And the Apple Watch, when I asked a friend, I borrowed his, I tested its vibration and all that. It kind of felt like it didn't really kind of like wake me up. Like I fell asleep and I tried to use the Apple Watch like in any way to like vibrate or try to wake me up. It didn't really work. So I figured that if I use an app, I'm kind of limited in what tools I can use, and if I create a new device, I kind of have more creative freedom to increase the vibration and all that. Casey.
So you gave us a lot of information about how detrimental sleep deprivation is. Is there a way that this product is going to target the root cause of all these problems, or is it just going to...
What I've realized is that I've noticed throughout all my high school years that teachers will constantly tell students, get more sleep. The administration puts out all these speakers saying, hey, get more sleep, yada yada yada. But students seldom ever follow that advice. Honestly, and my device is kind of aimed at if you really can't change your sleeping habits for whatever reason. And when I asked these people in the survey, why are you having such problems sleeping? They're saying, I got to have this grade in order to get into this college. I got to do this in order to make my parents happy with me and all that. So people have legitimate reasons to kind of, not sleep or whatever. So the whole point of this device is trying to, prevent your prevent you from suffering academically, while at the same time, I also kind of want people to kind of use this device in order to kind of yeah, I can't change my habits, but at least I won't be able to, fall asleep. And hopefully, while people, hopefully, they can also change their habits.
I want to kind of keep us on track. Let's go ahead and give them a hand.